The reason that I did an altarpiece on paper is because I want to make print history. I want to be part of the history. I want to do things that are different. 100 years from now, somebody will see my stuff and say, I want to do something different like that.
This is Platemark. My name is Ann Shafer, and I am your host. Today, I have a treat for you. True Ludwig and I traveled to St. Louis in August to take in an exhibition at the St. Louis Art Museum, which you have heard us talk about on other episodes. And one of the artists featured in that exhibition is Tom Hück, who we also spoke with earlier. We're circling back around with Tom because, well, we had an opportunity to see him face-to-face in his studio, which was wonderful fun. But he had something he wanted to share with us, an update about something he's been working on for a very long time. Tom's new publication is being released on Thanksgiving Day, so we wanted to get this episode out ahead of time to whet your appetite, as it were, and to get you excited about what's coming. You will hear in this conversation that it is me and True Ludwig, who's my partner on the History of Prince series for Platemark, that we are talking to Tom in his studio, and you'll probably notice that I don't get a word in edgewise. True is a big fan of Tom's, and it turns out Tom is a big fan of True's. So they met for the first time right before we started taping, and they were both fanboying on each other. So you'll hear a little bit of that in the beginning, and then the fanboying went on for so long, I had to cut a bunch out. So we hop right in. I'll try and guide us through the conversation so you know where we are, because it does jump around. Okay, before we get started, I always like to mention my positionality. I identify as a cis het white woman, and I use the pronouns she, her. I record Platemark in Baltimore, Maryland, the land of the Piscataway Conoy people. You can do me a favor. Here's your call to action. Go over to the platemarkpodcast.com webpage. There is a support and donate button there, and you can sign on to be a monthly supporter of Platemark and all our good work here at a rate of $5 a month. Or there's a second button where you can donate a single time, and you can self-determine that amount yourself. Also, one last note, the show notes for the episode are over on platemarkpodcast.com, as well as the support and donate button. It's all over there for you. And I always include the images that we talk about in any conversation, so you can avail yourself of that. But if you're watching this on YouTube as a video podcast, you will see the images on the screen as they come up in conversation. So lucky for you. Okay, buckle up. Let's get rolling. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. Oh my god, I can't even say hello. Listen to you.
No, try again. We'll
This
be
is
good.
me behaving, and you're like looking at him. No, you're not.
What's great is just to watch your face.
I know, I'm like, oh my god.
This is called
This
trolling.
is torture,
I thought.
Platemark listeners. Torture. Almost as soon as the tape was rolling and those two started talking over each other, Tom started fanboying out loud and on the record. So that's what's coming next.
That when you did the podcast with him, I thought that it was edited so that he was on that much. You're really exactly like that. You are on all the time and quick-witted and sharp all the time.
Well, not all the time.
I don't believe it. That's bullshit. You are sharp and on it.
I forgot to mention that some of us were swearing like sailors throughout the entire podcast. So if you're listening to this out loud somewhere, maybe pay attention to who's around while you're listening. When we go back to the conversation, Tom was describing delivering the first in the edition of the new print to the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
So when I went to the Met and I dropped off my print, I'm in the Met print and drawing area. Everybody knows I love the rhinoceros, but I have subsets.
If you know Tom at all, you'll know that he has an abiding love for Albrecht Dürer and his prints, the rhinoceros being his top favorite one.
That's my favorite print of all time, but my favorite Dürer, not rhinoceros, I should say. My number 2 is the Martyrdom of St. Catherine. So they asked me, like, what's your favorite Dürer? Well, I'm just standing around waiting to fill out paperwork. And I was like, the Martyrdom of St. Catherine. And they're like, you want to see the block? I go, yeah. and then it hit me where I was. But within 3 minutes, they had it out in front of me. And the amazing thing is, the cuts on that thing are so shallow.
Isn't it astonishing?
They're so shallow. He is not... Those blocks... And I say he didn't because I guess we could totally get into the argument over whether Dewar carved his own blocks.
It's early enough that it was his own block.
Me too.
So there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was him. Because if you look at the stuff after the apocalypse and a few one-offs, they're great.
Yeah, but...
Because they're his drawing.
Yeah.
But it was a little more clinical. There are decisions that are made in those blocks of swelling black lines that only people that carve blocks can tell that. No offense, curators don't know.
They don't.
They don't know about what happens when you're carving a line and you're making decisions while that line is being drawn or carved or etched or whatever.
And you still stay loose, and you can't go too deep, and you can't go too fast. The other thing is to remind the students that he's just using like a little tiny paring knife kind of a situation, not even a V-gouge.
No, it's just a knife. Yeah.
And it's counterintuitive to the way anybody carves these days with our V-gouges.
With the V, you still do, I will still change the width of lines as I'm doing it.
Yes.
But with those, you have to score those lines.
Right. And then
with a knife.
And then crimp it out.
And you can tell.
Wait. Ho. Is he scoring the whole design lightly as a guide?
Okay, what it's called.
A passage.
And then going back?
They would score the edge and then scoop away from the edge, which I call it cutting a ridge. That's not what the actual term is, but when I was teaching, I had to come up with an explanation when you're trying to teach people how, in my workshops, how to do this. You have to call it something.
Right.
So I call it cutting a ridge, and it's you score and you scoop away from that area.
You score really lightly where the end of the black line is and where the white of the wood is. And you very lightly along there, all the way around. Let's just say that you're cutting a diamond. And so and then you empty out the center of it. But he's still doing it with that one dopey little... That's how he got the crazy lattice work.
Exactly.
Because you can't get that any other way.
And so Dewar is the greatest printmaker of all time. And the reason for that, I say that, is... The first reason is because of how he reached an audience using prints that way.
Well, he's freaking brilliant.
And the
market analysis.
Yeah, there's no order to the greatness factor sections, okay? But one is the knowledge of what it could do, how prints could reach people. The other thing is the technical, and the imagination is another one. All that stuff combined, but when people ask, what makes him so great? He was able to use texture to describe form using directional lines.
Oh, yeah. Like the crossbody.
It's not outlined, you mean? It's all...
He didn't have to outline it.
He didn't have to. Never.
He did, but he didn't have to. And what that is you can...
If you have cross contour. Yeah. So it's like a topographical
in
map.
Beginning drawing, they teach us this shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you forget it.
You forget. Everybody hates doing it in school.
Well, then do it, and then they go, oh, God,
here's an egg in a cube in a cylinder with single light source. They paint it all white and they put it out in front of you in beginning drawing, and it's an exercise and it's a chore. And then they teach you if it's, I don't even know if they do it anymore, but they'll teach you hatching, cross hatching, contour, cross contour. And they don't call it directional line,
but that's what it is.
That's what it is. And so Dewar, my explanation is Dewar could take a cube. If he was depicting a cube with a single light source, most people, they feel the need to draw the outline first and then fill in the values. Dewar didn't need to do that. He would do the value with one direction, a different value with another direction, and then a shadow on the surface that the cube is sitting on with another direction, and then put the line over it, and then go over the top of it with hatching and cross hatching, and then dots within the hatches.
Or if you think about the flank on the horse of Night, Death, and the Devil.
Oh, number 3. Yeah. Number 3 greatest fucking print of all time.
Okay. Let's go back to that horse's flank. So then you've got one set of marks that goes across the belly of the muscle coming towards you. You got another set that comes from around the butt of the horse that comes around. It creates that whole volume. And it's the swell and the taper, whether it's carved or engraved.
Yeah, or in size.
And he totally gets it.
Yeah, the swelling of the line then on top of using the directional line too, which is back to what we were saying. I believe that Durer carved
All
the
early
Apocalypse,
Yes.
the other one-offs, like Catherine is not part of the Apocalypse, but there are other
It's
ones
in that zone, yeah.
It's in that era when he was in his 20s, mid-20s. Then he got huge and famous, and then he employed cutters, Schneiders, just like everybody else did.
So yeah, the life of the Virgin. Totally, it's
Complete.
like these are all my drawings. It's in perspective. It's got all the nice little vignettes.
Tell,
but you hand it off to Litzelberger or somebody like that.
There's a uniformity to those later works. Now, what was the date on the Rhino?
1515.
Jeez, man, that's awesome.
Sorry.
1515. Okay, so that is that's what?
Later.
30 years after?
Well, so we've got the Apocalypse is 1498.
Yeah, so it's like 17 years, 18 years
That's
after.
a long time in Renaissance
In that
lifetimes,
time, that is an eternity.
Yeah.
Okay? It looks less clinical and uniform than the Virgin series, the Life of the Virgin. It looks a little different. It has more of a spirit of the earlier stuff.
Indeed.
Maybe it was just somebody that got his line work.
Here's the cool thing. So you got the 1515 Rhino. One of the things that when Tom gets to Baltimore for the print fair, really need to take you to the George Peabody Library, because if we needed to do an exegesis on the original Rhino, and then when it's repeated into another book and the scale changes and you can see it's a different hand, and then you can see, that's not Dürer, he's pretending to be Dürer, and then somebody does a copy of that into another book, then you go, well, that's why Dürer is so good.
Yeah, you can see the pale imitations.
It's like Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. And you're right, the spontaneity, the life within those marks. There's a joy in...
It could be the subject matter carries the day. It's not that, like, some of these prints that are like...
Wait a minute. That's like totally his. There's a joy in...
that's totally his. Because of the line work is so different than the later stuff.
Yeah.
When you're looking at a Dürer, he's the first person in woodcuts that knew how to get atmospheric perspective by just simplifying the line. He would go in his compositions during the Apocalypse era, he would do foreground, simple, middle ground, action, complicated, dense, values, wide range, which is hard to get in woodcut, and then back to simple in the background.
Some lovely little incidences.
Yeah. Like the mountains, or a chateau,
or a little pie crust cloud up there.
Birds. How my grandpa taught me how to draw birds. He's like, you just do 2 U's.
Right, except he doesn't, because his birds
he does a W.
Yeah, and
he knows how to simplify for distance, and he knows where those things are, and he also figured out what the limit. It's not that the limitation is the wrong word for when it comes to any graphic medium. It's more like how the line reads.
You know what's really fun? When we taught history of prints together, is there's like the Ecce Homo from the Life of Christ, the large one. Well, we had it as it was carved, and then there's a hand-colored one. And you know that he's like, no, fucking nobody needs to put color on my stuff, because it screws this beautiful line.
It really changes it, and then, it dulls it.
Well, and then they'll like put in the blood spatters and stuff, because these people wanted color, so we're gonna, and it's like you can just see Jurgen. But why would he have this glorious range of marks and then have you cover it up with your stupid body color?
Well, I always say people ask, why don't you work in color? I have. The color in my stuff has to be there for a conceptual reason. And I don't really count chiaroscuro.
That's just
it's a tint.
Yeah.
It's not local color or anything. It's a tint version, so it's still monochromatic, basically, with a chiaroscuro. I want people to imagine the color.
But let's think about this. So Dürer you don't need your stinking colors, right? It starts letting you understand how much of a stage director Dürer was. And he's pulling all of those designs out of his whatever, right? And he understands where to position the figures and how to get the most drama in it. And it is truly a passion play.
I said to you, Ann, about how Dürer was funny.
Yes.
There's humor. It may not be I don't know if it necessarily
It's not a
was
knee slapper,
It
but
isn't
it's
a
there.
knee slapper, but you know the papal figure getting his eye
Oh,
grabbed
yeah.
out. There are little things like that.
Well, it's just where the maw of hell is like biting his head off.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And those animals are funny. The critters are funny in there, and I don't know if they would have been funny necessarily then. Maybe it was the ergotism. I don't know. You know, do you think it was the ergotism?
Do you think it was the ergotism? Well,
Do you think it was the ergotism?
What the hell is the ergotism?
It's
The ergotism.
Ergot. It's a fungus that grows on rye.
Rye.
And that's what causes...
It turns into LSD when you bake it.
Oh,
It's
well,
bad rye,
is-
and that
oh.
they think that
Well,
that's...
damn, that's the wrinkle I didn't put into art history. Ergotism is what causes these problems and
You start hallucinating
and
with bad rye, and that's where they think the Bosch shit came from. There was a bad rye outbreak, I don't know, batch throughout Europe for a while, and when they would bake it, it turns into some form of LSD, and people were eating it, and they would get really sick. And I think it was called St. Anthony's Fire.
And it didn't have the kids in it.
No, it didn't. It was St. Elmo's Fire. Man in Motion.
Whatever.
Anyway, so back to St. Anthony's Fire. We love St. Anthony.
Well, yeah.
Well, people were hallucinating, and an order of monks,
Yes.
St. Anthony's order,
Yep.
treated people with St. Anthony's Fire, but the problem was they were using roots and shit that made them hallucinate more. But they documented all the hallucinations, and they think maybe that's where some of the imagery comes from.
Well, that's
in those Northern European imagery. They're coming directly from ergotism. I got that from Steve Goddard. But there's the other thing. They think that was the Salem witch stuff.
Yeah.
They think ergotism was the problem why these women were hallucinating and people were
so I know it takes it away from the carving of Europe, but think about the Four Witches that's done 1497, and it's right at the same time that the Malleus Maleficarum is being published. It's like, okay, so you came up with a book to persecute women because they're experiencing something that they ate, and now we can just call them witches.
Right. Yeah. It was because of some bad fucking bread.
And they're the ones that had to bake it, and now they got to get baked themselves to...
Yeah, right.
So why the white men, as usual, are controlling things, even though they probably were eating damn bread
Of course
too,
they were.
right?
They were, but then they were just like, oh, I got a long night down at the pub.
But that and the fact that, you know...
she baked that fucking bread.
But it's always, you know, putting the blame on the woman.
Always.
You know.
I guess I still don't have a full understanding of how depictions at that time were of its time, because I tend to lean into the like, look at that witch riding that goat backwards, it's fucking cool.
Oh, you mean the saggy titty lady?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, another great print is, and we're going to go off on this a little bit, talking about Witch's Sabbath.
Yes.
By Baldwin.
Yes.
It's the greatest Halloween image of all time.
It's splendid, and they're like sitting on
and it's like, and it's powerful.
And the two, whether it's in one color or two.
Right, and I've seen it in multiple colors.
And it's great, no matter what.
Those images for me, when I was a kid, I saw those really young, and they had an impact on me, not even knowing the history. There was no Google when I was 13.
Those are witches, and they're making stuff, and they're frying babies, and that's what's going to make them fly, and it's special.
It's fantasy art.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Before it was given a bad rap by art schools.
Well, yeah.
Because I told you, and in the last podcast, I'm from a background of album cover art in heavy metal. And when you're a kid, I liked Witch's Sabbath, the image, just as much as I liked the album cover for The Ultimate Sin for Ozzy Osbourne, which is Boris Vallejo, who is a very famous fantasy artist. There was no, to me, it was all art.
Yep.
And I still don't delineate between that stuff. It was all my influence.
Well, you know, then one could get all snotty and say, well, that's commercial art. Well, then one could say Prince were commercial art, too.
He wanted to make some money, man.
Well, duh. So he came up with, like, well, here's an idea. It's the end of the world. It's going to happen in 1500. I think I'll come up with an apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah. And in fact, I don't even need your stupid Bible text on there. It's just going to be all images.
No.
That's enough aside. You'll be dead. It's fine.
That, you know, what got me started, and maybe this is a good thing to get around to, when you said it without the Bible text. I like the back side of single, they call them full sheet woodcuts. I like
You like
the
the-
stuff on the back.
Yeah, yeah.
And that got me
It
thinking
was
about
interesting in that.
fronts and backs of prints, and it got me thinking
Thinking
about
about
the
where
print
you
is
went.
actually an object.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe a used object, because it was.
Well, isn't that the lovely part of it, though?
Yes.
Because you also get the emboss plus the text, and you get this extra
See through it,
overmapping,
too.
which I
And
just
that
think
you
is
can
so
see
sexy.
through it,
Yeah.
and it is also the kind of paper,
That beautiful rag paper.
that rag paper that has a silvery tone to it. That's probably because it's old. That's how it's aged. I don't know what it. Maybe it was bright white in the day. I mean, this Hogarth
I'll
back
bet
here,
you
which I
anything-
can't believe I'm pointing at.
Hey, so there's this beautiful, wonderful new old Hogarth here from 1738. Yeah, but the paper, because it's a good quality, thick,
Right.
and it's the same
It's in my studio. I bought it at an antique
for us,
for nothing. They
Well-
didn't know what they had.
and that's the best part of
I
living.
think you posted the price on Facebook. I think the entire world knows how much.
I
you paid.
didn't
I paid
see that.
$400 for it.
$400.
And now they're going, damn,
You just got to keep your eyes peeled.
you do.
It was meant to be.
But wait, so
Okay.
the concept of that beautiful, thick linen paper that has a rattle to it. So it's paper that has personality to
Yeah.
it. That's thick and could take
Yeah.
the kind of abuse that being pressed into a woodblock and then also being pressed into text, it's got this heft, and he knows that, right? And
Yes.
this really is the integration of text and image, right?
They're
And-
together.
And you get this pentimenti, but that same kind of emboss and pressure. I'm going to admit, I just petted your prints out there on your beautiful.
were. You were
I
petting
was
the
totally
prints.
petting the prints
Well,
because
that's the
you
thing.
said they were duds, so
They were duds.
and so I petted them because they have that
You
wonderful.
still feel it.
Oh yeah,
feel it.
You got the emboss, and that's like sex, and it's wonderful, and it's very tactile.
It is very sexy.
The handheld object, it's not some specimen tacked to the wall, right? Every kid these days wants to, I want to have something where people can interact with it. You could open it, you could close it, you can walk around
Right.
it, you can do this, and that's
What the new
a
thing
huge,
is.
big new place for you.
It is. Okay, maybe you should. So,
She'll get there.
should we?
We're talking about the new triptych that you're just finishing the editioning of.
The
Right?
name of it
Well,
is
finishing is a large word, or a very optimistic. We have 13 more of them to make on my half. The other half has to be put together in Scotland because we split the edition.
Stop, rewind, play. The name of this new altarpiece is,
A Mountain Kronikle.
and it's destined to come out when and in what capacity?
Thanksgiving
2022.
2022, it'll officially exist out there, finished, done, broadcast to the world as a finished thing.
And it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blocks.
8.
8 blocks. Where's the
Front
eighth?
and back.
Wait, okay. so
1,
the-
2, 3 front.
It's
1,
a
2, 3
triptych.
back. Yeah,
You
with a predella.
Right. Okay. So not only did you have to carve all this thing, but it's like the biggest unfolding book, which is what I always call Northern Ren art. It just always is. More things under every layer, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming up with ways to exhibit this upright and beautiful, like you could experience the Ghent altarpiece or anything like
It's
that.
an object that is made to be open and closed. And it's an altarpiece on paper. I planned it 7 years ago, started it 5 years ago, and I finished it, the carving part of it, in March of this year.
Did COVID help you make more progress on that or less?
I took a year. I had to stop for a year
Because
because
of the move
I
to
get
here?
the move, and I had to make smaller prints to make money. I had to stop, and I did a few small things to fund the move. And then when I start these things, I have these great. I start them in my sketchbook, and the reason that I did something like an altarpiece on paper is because I want to make print history. I want to be part of the history. I want to do things that are different. And one of my friends was like, it's like, why, Tom, does everything have to be so hard? And it's because I don't want to make the same fucking print for the rest of my
Because
life.
prints. That's why. It's always the
It's
what if. It's always
What
the why
if?
not.
And all my heroes did
Stuff that
new
was new.
things
Yeah.
that were new and things that hadn't been done before. So I want to keep that going. And
you
then
can-
100 years from now, somebody will maybe see my stuff and say, I want to do something different like that.
But you have the luxury of scale because
Drew didn't have plywood.
exactly, and they didn't have paper in those.
They did
would
not.
have to put
They would have
192
put it
little
together.
pieces.
They would have put it, which they ended up doing for the
The
arch.
arch. of
That's a badass print.
Right.
Even though it's stuck together, you're just still, it's a massive thing.
It does its job.
It kills. It just kills. My idea behind this, it's always growing. I'm moving toward growing in my work and figuring out how to do the history, like do things that are just, when I was trying to explain this to these really well-known print curators, what I was working on, I wish I could show the audience, but it's like I'd be explaining to them, I'm going to do an altarpiece on paper and it'll open and close, it'll be it'll be upright, and you'll walk around it, and while I'm saying this, their eyes go over my shoulder, like looking into the distance, like, what the fuck is he talking about? And then, when we got one together, after 7 years of thinking about it and planning it, and we had figured out a few things, it was difficult because it has to open and close, and you've got hinges, and I had never glued anything that big together. There's a front and a back, and
so it's on both sides.
It's on both sides.
But the center panel is a print on both the front and the back.
Yes.
And it's hinged to the doors of an altarpiece that would fold in on themselves.
Correct.
Front and back.
Yeah.
And then you've still got the predella.
The predella comes out. Originally, the predella was going to be
that's right. It's
connected, but I was like, that's not going to work.
So is it supposed to flop down, kind of like a centerfold?
It's you know what it is? I reached a point where I realized I'm not making. This is a weird place to be. I'm making these things to be in museums and not in people's homes.
Right.
I don't know if this is what it's called, but it's basically an old school presentation print that people would get around a parlor and pull out the prints and look at them. It's an oddity kind of thing. And so the predella rests inside it, and it is, I call it a portable predella. That's the title of it with 2 subtitles. And then it comes down and you just set it at the bottom, or it's displayed upright at the bottom somehow, which I'm currently working on how to display this thing. And then the Met got number 1,
right? And
I showed the curators a video of Jen, my partner. I hate saying it because it sounds like a law firm.
I know.
But so I had her open it and close it and do the whole thing once we got it, and I sent that to him, and it was immediately like, oh my God, yeah. This is what you were talking about. Holy shit! And it's like
suddenly the focus.
She goes, "It's an altarpiece," and I was like, "Yeah." One of the curious,
just like I said.
When they see how it's closed, immediately, not even seeing it opened or closed, because of the way that an entry to an altarpiece is. It's a presentation front with a male figure, female figure, Adam and Eve, God and Mary, on and on and on. I followed certain protocols throughout art history in presentation altarpieces in this. And so they immediately, the people that I sent it to, this little video, immediately it's like, oh my God, yeah, and so it was exciting. It's pretty exciting to see it. I'm already burned out on it, and I have 13 more to put together.
Details. So wait,
wait, hold on, I'm interrupting.
Oh, but I thought we were going to tell it in order. Sorry.
Hold on. Let us congratulate you and the Met for their wise choice. It's the first work by you that's in their collection.
Yes.
Which is exciting.
It's pretty cool. It fits with definitely the art of the Middle Ages.
Yes.
It fits within that. That's what inspired it. But it's also a very contemporary subject matter.
Exactly.
Which things haven't really changed that much, right?
No,
we had a goddamn plague. People are wanting to kill each other over religion.
You have people that are in power that need to be
taken out.
Yes.
And on and on and on. At times, really, there's not much that's changed.
No, but we have been talking about it as an altarpiece, and for most people, that would conjure up some Jesus stuff and some, saints and stuff. So let's maybe run through the iconography.
Okay, so it's called a Mountain Kronikle, and the tagline is a devotional woodcut for the ages, because I want it to be a devotional object. So the iconography that's in there, it borders on insane twists on religious stuff, mixed with S&M motifs, mixed with fast food advertising, mixed with conspiracy theories mixed with cartoon characters that are then transformed into worship deities from their real life to their afterlife. It's all in there.
The through line is excesses and gluttony.
Gluttony is the main thing, and it's American gluttony. It's American gluttony in politics, food, bad food, conspiracy theories, gluttony in religion, gluttony in hate, and how it is served to us like Big Macs.
Ah.
If you package it just right, look, the way that they did this, here's what's so brilliant about MAGA land. And I use brilliant not in a complimentary, but this is not stupid. They figured out what 30 to 40% of the population really care about. Sports. And they branded it like a fucking sports team. So that you're picking your team. They like the logo. They like the clothing. It's wrapped in the flag. We can all get behind that, right? So...
The spirit rallies?
Yeah. A sports spirit rally. And they have marketed it like a sports thing where it's a win or lose, your team, mine. And how else can you explain why there would be a San Francisco 49er fan living in Park Hills, Missouri? They like the logos. They like the uniforms.
Well, but if you just read the banderole across the front of your Pradella, we eat, we sleep, we hate, repeat. I mean, it just...
They got their tagline. Yeah. They've got their Make America Great Again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you deserve a break today.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving it. You know, I don't know what the other ones are.
Have it your way.
Have it your way.
There you go.
They've come up with sloganeering that people that have been fear-mongered to can latch onto. And that is really what the whole thing is about. And then when an American is in on something, they're all in. Otherwise, how could you explain more people voting on American Idol than vote in elections? Because it's
slick, it's packaged, it's pretty.
It's slick, it's packaged, it's pretty, it's bass,
fun.
It's fun,
it's got
glitzy,
boobies.
there's boobies, you know, it's pseudo music, you know, and it catchy sometimes, and there's a human interest story.
Maybe
always.
A whiff of scandal.
A whiff.
But not too much.
Right. Because I started really paying attention to this trash culture part of the U.S. right around the Tonya Harding.
Oh my goodness!
And
you were the skater in early
what's
on.
What's the other one?
Tonya
Harding and
oh crud!
Kerrigan.
Nancy
Kerrigan. Right around that time, I did a print that was kind of about that. The transformation Brandy Baghead, skating, trash. I started paying attention to where this was going, and someone that is willing to put a hit on somebody over a fucking skating competition says a lot about where people are now. And it's just become more extreme. And it was marketed as a drama. That's when I started paying attention to culture rot through what is packaged and delivered to us through our media. And that's what this whole thing is about. 30% of our population, which was Tonya Harding, against the elites, which is 70% of our population.
Right.
Right? It's the way it's played out in the media. That was where, to me, this started. And it was on the heels of a Monica Lewinsky blowjob.
Yep.
Which was another thing. Well, Bill Clinton's just a hillbilly. He got a blowjob in the Oval Office. That Arkansas hillbilly.
And you wouldn't do the same?
And you're right.
So you think about, so you had like the blowjob heard around the world, and you had the Nancy Kerrigan, that's 92.
The kneecap job
and
heard
so
around
then
the world.
You think that was exacerbated. Then you have the internet that control that much more on top of all of it.
Well, and O.J. Simpson.
Look at your eyes fly open.
Let's throw the race thing in on top of there, too, because that was a nationally sensationalized, covered car chase.
Right. You got Rodney King in there, too.
It was all that mixed up in a lot of other sub-dramas going on that sort of caused it. The L.A. riots, Rodney King, and then there's on and on. I was working on the rural satire in my hometown stories, but they were always part of a bigger issue, too.
But if you start thinking about what we just listed, it is just so effing bosh.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just the
Hogarth.
absurdity of all. I'm looking at the Hogarth, and is that from the Harlot's Progress there?
No, it's a one-off, and it's out. It's the time.
Really?
It's the time period, isn't it?
Well, but they've got all of their nice little syphilitic,
They
beauty marks
It's
and all of that.
actresses changing in a barn or something.
strolling actresses changing in a barn, dressing in a barn or something.
Well, there they have it.
But Hogarth would have done all this stuff.
Look at the composition. You look at the vitality of that, and then you look at what Tom's been doing. You look at all of the creepy little beasties in our
There's
bosses.
a lot of creepy little beasties.
And-
What were you going to ask?
Well, the thing that...
Back to you.
No, back to you.
My turn?
Of course.
The thing that switched Tonya Harding and all that in 93, go back to Wolf Blitzer.
During the Gulf War.
The beginning of the Gulf War.
Yes.
That was the first time we started having the 24 news cycle.
It was.
24-hour news cycle.
Lewis Black said, the problem with our culture now is you don't have 24 hours of news, you have 48 hours because of the ticker that's running at the bottom.
Right.
That kind of thing where people felt they needed to fill time was not necessarily a good thing.
No.
Because everything is overanalyzed, I think.
And reduced down to the shortest.
They had to. It's a common thing. It's happened forever. I mean, I'm sure that there have always been newspaper headlines, you know.
Yeah.
Now it's everywhere. You see the headline on your phone. You see the headline on TV. You hear the headline on the radio. You hear it on podcasts. You hear it.
But it's no longer journalism either. It's not impartial.
No.
And it's all been curated by all sorts of people whose complete bent is everybody has their own need to fulfill, which is no different than like the church has a certain way of doing things, and the citizens of the day and with their ergot have another set of things.
And people are gorging themselves on it, which is what this whole new piece is about. It's about gluttony in the broadest. America does it with a certain kind of flair. We do it with a rebel flair. We have that
rugged individualism.
Spirit, rugged individualism. We have that spirit in us that you can't tell us what to do.
That's right.
The rest of the world, rightfully so, is sitting aghast at what we are. And we're eating ourselves alive. I didn't think about it that deeply. I came to that as I was making, because I'm doing about all this terrible gluttonous shit. And then as I'm working, I'm working these images out as I make them. You know, things come in and go out, and then even though I'm planning, I have a very strict plan that I follow, I'm still working it out for myself as I make these things. And oddly enough, a big part of this is they're packaging hate like a Big Mac to sell it to us because it's make it more palatable. That's what it's about. It's making hate more palatable. If you sparkle it up, you can polish a turd, it turns out, and feed it to unsuspecting people. That's what it's about. Every time you go to McDonald's, you're participating in MAGA. I mean,
the downfall of American civilization?
Yes.
Yes.
There's fucking McDonald's everywhere. But I love Quarter Pounders with cheese. I like junk food. I love it. Everybody has their thing.
Okay, let's take a quick breather right there. You can imagine any conversation with Tom and True can slide off into sidebar conversations. We finally circled back around to describing the iconography of the Mountain Kronikle. Let's rejoin that conversation.
There's a big bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah, I've been noticing that.
So there some of the people, like one of the outer panel is Marge. Sister Marge is her name. And she's one of the brides of Lord Apocalyptus, who is the overseer, overlord. And then in the right-hand panel facing her is Papa Apocalyptus, who is actually Lord Apocalyptus, but he hasn't died yet. So he has died and he became Lord Apocalyptus after Papa because it's short for Pope.
Right.
People, they call him Papa. And so there are characters like that, and it's also about transcending into something worse. And so, like, even if you die, you can become worse. An asshole is still just a dead asshole.
That's right. So we have the Madre Apocalyptus, and then you have the little nunnish figure.
It's a combination.
S&M.
S&M.
Luchador.
Luchador mask. Right. Because some of those things overlap.
Yeah.
In their looks.
But then I'm noticing the really fine piece of meat that's hanging from her. What would have been her rosary.
She has a pork steak. Steak.
Yeah.
Rosary.
And I just wanted to make sure I understood. I mean, she's very devoutly praying to
She is.
the magnificent.
It's one of the brides. It's one of the brides of Lord Apocalyptus, who she's the head nun, and then that's one of her underlings there. And then there's a bat helping her hold a spaghetti line, which continues through to the other panel. You can't really see her because you're looking at the actual wood blocks right now. All be out in November for everyone to see. There'll be a website that takes you through it. And it also has its own line of merch that's coming out too, which is something I've always done because I always felt like, okay, if I spend 5 years on something like this, it should be an event when it arrives.
Like an album.
Like an album. Like, I got a lot of that stuff from music. Like, if you're waiting for the next Radiohead album, there are t-shirts, there are stickers, there are posters, there are online promos, there are this, that, and interviews, and on and on and on that build it up, and it's an event when it hits, and I never understood why it wasn't okay for an artist to have the same thing happen.
Well, please do tell us about the two different levels of the Happy Meal.
Okay, so there's a side body of work that goes along with this, which we're getting ready to start. It won't take that long, but so all the merch, there's going to be t-shirts, there's going to be keychains, there'll be stickers, and actually they're going to be devotional relics from bad prints. I'm going to cut it down and I'm going to sign the back and we'll package it like a relic. And we're going to do, instead of a Happy Meal, there'll be a box like a Happy Meal, but it's called a box of sorrows. And it's
Num, num, num.
all you'll be able to get all of the collectible merch that goes along with it in a totally decorated box that will be screen printed and put together. And if you look up there, because you didn't tell them where we're at, we're in my studio.
Yes, we're in.
True and I just kind of jumped right in.
You did jump right in.
There's a Happy Meal box right up on I haven't gotten to you. It's been there for a year. It's up on the bulletin board. You can see the little golden arches sticking out there. We're going to lay it out and trace it and figure out, make it a little bit bigger, and then that's how we're going to do it. And then we'll screen print onto it. So there'll be the box of sorrows, and we're going to offer those for sale. But everyone that gets the actual triptych will get one of those with it. And then there's the budget box of sorrows, which is just a pizza box with the imagery on it with a t-shirt and a sticker. That's the budget box of sorrows. So there'll be those levels. And then there's a poster, a hand-printed poster that we've already done. And that'll be the Mountain Kronikle General Store that is on the website that exists. And
Is the website live already?
No.
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
But it will be, the URL is...
It is LordApocalyptus.com.
It is?
Yeah.
LordApocalyptus.com.
You two just saw it. I unfolded it.
We did.
It's the template, though. It was the
Right.
fucked up one.
Well, I think what may not be clear to folks is that as a triptych, you can lay it on a table and unfold it like a fold out in a book. But really, as a stand-in for an altarpiece, it ought to be seen
It will be upright.
So,
And we're working that out right now.
Right.
I think I got a plan.
So you're supposed to be able to walk all the way around it,
Yes.
360.
It should be printed
in a
like
space.
it should be displayed like an altarpiece.
In the day, let's say that this is the altar. I'm gesturing to the table immediately in front of me where the Lord's Supper would be prepared. The altarpiece would be above you. It would be closed most of the year, and they could open it for that. But the point was that the back of it would also have images. And so when the people came up the ambulatory, the side aisles, they could go around the back of it in the apse, and they could see all the other, oftentimes smaller stories that would have a way of explicating what you saw in the front.
But there is the thing, too. This thing does exist within the print world. It's a work on paper.
Absolutely.
Made. I want to be a pain in the ass to print rooms.
Ta-da!
Down the, like, oh, God, we got to get the Huck out. Oh, jeez,
Well,
get
so
your staff of
Let
five.
me tell you that we used to do that to Anne.
I do know, because I know, not as much as you, but I know my print history pretty well.
Tom is pointing at True on that one.
He knows his print history.
You know your shit, dude.
Not like you, but it's quite intimidating. But
Thank you. But
I know where it sits, and I know that it is unique.
if it was like the the altarpiece that is presented to the cathedral of the city, as they did in Siena. And the whole town would, with great triumph, and it's like been waiting, and he finished it, and we all bring it up, and the whole town is la la la, and their procession behind it, and they have,
They're
festivals.
processing the actual altarpiece
Absolutely.
to the street.
Yeah, the city.
It was a huge deal.
Yeah, come on, man. That was the IMAX of its day. There were
It was.
no other places to see images.
Yeah.
So imagine the Cathedral of Huck. And then this whole thing gets trotted through town, and everybody's having their erga dance. And
I think this is going to be tricky because of money and travel stuff. I don't want them to do this if I'm not there, but I think we have made it so that in Aberdeen, where this is being done, next to Peacock Visual Arts, who are my wonderful print partners, we haven't talked about them yet, but they're the ones that got this project going with me. There's a church the church is their landlord.
And the church is not being used.
It's not being
It's
used.
repurposed.
And it's the altar's still there. And we're gonna shoot it on the altar.
Yeah, you
up
are.
on
Of course you are.
we're gonna put it in there.
Of course
and
you are.
The promo shots, and it will be open and closed. It's unbelievable.
It's gonna be
I walked
perfect.
over there. I was like, "Oh my God, this is perfect."
And it's so perfect that the whole concept of gluttony and
Yes.
and
The BBC came in and spent a weekend watching me and talk about this. It sounded insane, and people are like, "What is this?" But that stuff will all be on the website.
I was going to say, isn't that on the website yet?
Not yet.
Who's your
You may be able to
webmaster?
find that. You can find that
Probably
on
the
YouTube.
BBC, yeah.
The BBC Scotland. BBC Scotland.
No,
did
there's
it.
no need. It'll all be on your website.
It'll all be there. Everything.
The triptych, what's the scale? We haven't said what the scale is. We know it's big. but-
Closed, it's 4 feet by 4
4
feet,
feet,
Okay.
with a 12-inch predella
Right.
below it. So it's around 5 feet
By 4 feet.
by 4 feet when it's
Closed.
5
feet by 8
8
feet,
feet when it's
because
open.
when it opened it's 8
Yeah.
feet long.
Right.
And we're gonna show it 3/4 open like they do.
Yeah,
Because you want to know. I want people to know it's an object,
Mm-hmm.
and it is a functional thing because if you have the doors partially open, you know that.
But because this is a 21st century altarpiece, because if it were, it would have to be opened all the way on a feast day.
We'll just do it on Thanksgiving. That'll be perfect. And we've been putting out teasers for like 2 years about it. And it got delayed really to that in a better way. It ended up being on Thanksgiving, which it should be, because there's a book. There's a book about me coming out in the next month and a half. And it's like 20 years of my stuff. And I know that's going to... I didn't want it competing with something coming out that I really wanted.
Don't you want to tell us a little bit more about this book of 20 years of your stuff?
It's called The Devil's in the Details.
Yeah, think.
The Prince of Tom Hück, 1995 to 2021.
And who's behind all this?
There's a company in St. Louis called Once Films, and they've won all these Emmys and stuff, and they happen to be in St. Louis. And they started a publishing company under their umbrella, and about 4 years ago, they came into my studio like, "We want to do a book about you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." They got Monty Beauchamp, who's the editor of Blab, like an underground comics anthology that comes out through Fantagraphics. He's an old friend of mine. He wrote the intro. And Greg Kessler writes on punk rock bands and stuff. They got him to come in and interviewed me. And they transcribed, the text is transcriptions of interviews about all the specific work. It takes a long time to do something like that. And then Jim Harper is this great graphic designer. He put it all together and guided the project through. And it took about 4 years. And they photographed all of my work from Ted and Marianne Simmons' collection that just got donated to the St. Louis Art Museum. Ted and Marianne have one of everything I've done up until, everything until this latest project. And it was kept in great shape. So they went and spent 2 weeks at Marianne's place. High res, great photographs. But this was all spread out. And then COVID happened. There was a delay, obviously. And then it's coming out. I just saw the proofs of it 2 or 3 days ago. There's all kinds of photos of, they found some stuff I can't believe. And it's 25 years of this, doing prints for a living. It's pretty cool. And it comes with a print. The first 100. And I'm doing a signing at the Met. October 30th. They're going to carry that book, and it'll be in a lot of museum shops. And
Will
stuff
it be affordable to the layperson, or are we gonna have to wait for a
like
trade?
$75.
That's not outlandish.
125 for the one with the print in it, and there's 100 of them. And the one with the print comes with a slip case and all that stuff.
All
Oh,
that
nice.
stuff.
And then the
Do you come with a box of sorrows?
maybe.
We'll take a side of fries with that, please.
I'd like a side of fries with my box of sorrow.
I'd like to have some gluten-free host,
I like some
please.
gluten-free conspiracy theory. Give me the gluten-free Jan 6 special.
What, the box of sorrows, not going with a triptych to a place. If somebody wants to buy just the box of sorrows, what's that going to run? Do you know?
$200.
200.
Yeah, $200. Because it's got some stuff in it you won't be able to get.
I mean, it's
Right.
the relic that I think.
It's the relic that's in there.
You want that? No, it's going to be, yeah. It'll be, they'll uncover this in some archaeological dig and go, oh, it's the hidden religion of Missouri.
I always thought like this. I thought this with Electric Bologna Land, but that was going to be the one. This one, I get that way. This is the one. This is the one. The thing.
The one print
The one
to
thing
rule
that I'll
them
be
all.
remembered for, maybe.
That's
maybe,
right.
if I'm lucky. So I'm going for that. That's because of the history thing.
Well, I think, but that's really important. You're going to do your little pilgrimage, and we're all
Right.
going to get our little tidbits.
I'm
of
on a
time.
print pilgrimage.
That's right.
So the box, I'm fixated on the Happy Meal, the box of
Yeah.
sorrows, because the Baltimore Museum, where I'm no longer, had not a huge collection, but a pretty good collection of those multiple object-y things.
Yeah,
Of
like-
which this would be a perfect addition. Like they had that series, The Thing, I don't know if you ever saw that, which included a ball by Michelle Graebner. There's a box set from the 1970 maybe
Louise?
artists and photographs that
Yeah.
has like the light bulb
Maybe
in
they
it.
will.
Yeah, there's
Maybe
all
they
sorts
will.
of good.
I'll end
objecting.
up waiting 18 months for a $250 check, probably, but okay.
You might.
Maybe. I'm hoping I can sell a couple of those. I mean, I've sold to my collectors already the pre-sale.
But the thing is, you said you also sell the blocks.
I already sold the blocks.
All of
They're
them?
already sold. That's part of how I survived
All of
COVID.
it.
Together?
See, that's important to say that.
Together or separately?
Together to one person.
Good.
Ooh.
These blocks, we have 14 more prints. I'm pointing for our audience. I'm pointing back behind me the blocks for the new project. I have 14 more to print of each one that is here. It's one printing day, and then that's it. And then Mark,
You can get those all printed in one printing day?
yeah,
Really?
it's a long day,
Yeah.
but we can do it with 3 people.
Oh, 3 people, yeah.
3 people. I don't print it by
Explain.
myself.
Explain about placing and pressing and,
We're 2 people inking one block at the same time. It's directional rows so that you can get low spots, and it's faster.
directional rolls.
You go vertical,
And then,
horizontal,
okay.
so that you can, if there are low spots,
Right, so you're getting,
or
yeah.
roller marks, you can ink a larger block up faster with 2 people. Then we have a clean hands person. After it's inked,
There has to be a separate person.
You lay
Yeah.
a person lays it down, and then we run it through my big press out in the press room. And once you get going, you get a rhythm. Everybody
It's a
knows the
beautiful-
waltz.
Yep.
Jen has become our clean hands person. We've taught her how to do stuff in the print shop, and she loves, I won't say she loves it, but she is amused by it. And Shelby, she's my long-term assistant, and then JT Felix, who's my master printer, he is overseeing it, but he doesn't have to be here all the time because he's taught Shelby pretty much how to do it. He gets it started. He did the first ones, and now Shelby and I pretty much can do
So
it.
how many total pulls will you take off of these blocks?
35
Okay.
off of each one.
And your logic there is that,
The addition is 30.
and then you got these 5 that are outside. They're the artist
Artist proofs.
All 5?
35. Now, there is another thing I just thought of, actually, with that. We're actually doing a little more than that. We're probably doing 40. I am doing independent runs of each
Okay,
one
that makes sense.
of the interior panels, because some people might want just the individual
Well-
one, and I sign them as
That's what Dura did, though.
print.
You could,
Yes,
You could totally
proof-
buy one of the Apocalypse.
Proof 1, proof 2. I'm still calling them proofs. That's just what I call them, even though they may not be. So that people will know they're on a mulberry as
Yes.
opposed to Torinoco.
Sure.
They're brighter white. I want those in my inventory
Yeah.
because it's a. I need to talk to you about the price, both of you, because it's not out there yet, and I've sold them at a different price pre-sale. But if it's a $30,000 print,
as a sum total, all 8.
Sum total, as opposed to maybe
a oneer.
$2,500, $3,000 print.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing to have. But I only did 4 of each of those.
Oh,
That makes some sense.
Well, the blocks start
that's
to wear
3,
down
right?
How dramatically did they degrade?
a lot. Probably
Really?
when you get to 40, you can see some slight fill in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enough to where if you saw
One.
Yep.
as opposed to 40, you would
Sure.
notice. But if you only see 40, you would never know.
Correct.
But we would know. If
Yeah.
you had most people will never see all.
But then, do you number them in sequence?
No,
You just let
Nobody
it be?
does. No,
that's a myth.
that is a myth.
Every once in a while, you'll do it. I did it recently on this small print called American Tickler. I did this.
That sounds fun.
I did this small print recently, and it's of a bullet with little nodules on
Like a vibrator?
it, like a French tickler. You remember what a French tickler is, Ann?
Is that a particular kind of vibrator tool?
It's a condom that came in
I-
gag. Literally,
No.
it came in as a gag gift in gas stations. It was a rubber with little rubber bumps all over it. It's called a French tickler. At gas stations, you used to be able to put a quarter in and get tampons, condoms, or sex gag gifts or something for whatever reason. And it gave me the idea. I'm going to do a bullet with the little
Gotcha,
rubber
I
nodules
see.
on it, like the French tickler. I go, yeah, because if it's an American bullet, let's make it feel better when you die by gun violence, right? An American thing. It's that packaged
Right.
thing. It's right over there on the table. I did those in sequence. We were in here. We were just print them. I'd sign them, and we just happened to do it like that. They're actually in the order. It's military. It's like ammo, and I decided to give it a serial number. Each one has a different printed serial number that matches the day that it was printed on, because it took us 2 days to print. So I got military green stamp pad, and I go like this,
sure.
and I stamped each one so that you know what day it was made on. And so it sort of added a little extra layer of the militaristic part of it, because if you look at ammo or you look at military stuff, they put K rations
Yeah.
and
It's
MREs.
sort of like
they
the
all have a
Fran-
date made on,
The
and
forensic
that's
marking.
what I did.
I think that less so with woodcuts, but more so with etchings is that you do those in sequence, because the plate really does degrade.
It does.
Far
it
more
really does.
visibly, like if you were doing aqua tint.
Woodcuts degrade quickly when they start to degrade.
Yeah.
You've got like a 75% good, and then when you start
then
to
it's-
see it degrade, it really starts to
Yeah.
degrade. Etchings, unless they're steel face and you're doing a real editioning of them,
Yeah.
you're using a lot more pressure for etchings than you do for woodcuts. You don't use a lot of pressure. I mean, you could still smash somebody's arm under
Yeah.
the press, but a lot more pressure with an
Oh,
etching.
of course, yeah.
A lot more.
But if you're curating, I don't know why they call it this, but if you have your pile and you're trying to pull out the ones that aren't exactly in line, there's
Well, you get rid of those, and you still do it, kind of do it in
I
sequence.
know them when I see them, as we're printing. Typically,
What, the duds or the good ones?
sometimes there's an obvious dud. Oh
No,
my
yeah.
God, we were
Oh,
too.
sure, of
and then
course.
you
Yeah.
put that aside right away. But you know what's so funny? Well, we went through all of the panels of a Monkey Mountain Chronicle. Shelby and I laid them out on the floor, and then I got up on a ladder,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, definitely are good. Those go in. And then those are okay. We moved those to later numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went for lunch, and I came back, and I doubled up on myself. Like, I was like, that one's good. She was like, those are the ones you said were terrible. Because really, we can see
Yeah.
when you're the maker of it,
You're hyper-tuned.
you're hyper tuned to it.
Yep.
So, but even then, once you go back on yourself sometimes, what are good and what are not. The definite early edition, I always say, yes, these are really, you can tell fresh prints. The last quarter of an edition, it really sucks, is when you carve shallow like I do,
Once it
it
fits
starts to wear down,
Yeah.
and then you have to start ghosting in between. A ghost is a print. I hate doing clean off prints because it's starting to cut into how many you're going to get. I keep mine low anyway. We printed 100 off of the block or so of the American Tickler print that I just did, and you can really tell. I was like, we're just going to make it whatever the edition was. I didn't like the last.
But you know, it's
bunch of it.
interesting when you talk about the clean-offs, because I hate the idea of putting any kind of solvent to clean off my plates, so I always just clean them off on newsprint. Then I think, well, what could we do with all of this newsprint that's been cleaned off? And yeah, it takes away from the life of the plate. I don't want to put any solvent down into the wood because it just...
The worst thing you can do,
worst.
but you have to do it sometimes, is stripping a block. I never want to do that. I call it stripping, where you have to go with mineral spirits and degrease it with alcohol. You got to let it sit for 24 hours, and then it's going to take you more pressings on that block
Wait, okay.
to get a good one.
So when you're setting yourself up a block, do you shellac the surface or do you let it be the raw wood? You turn them red so that you can see your marks, your cuts.
Okay, I do a drawing on the block in pencil, then I go on top of it with Sharpie's Magic Markers, a pen and ink drawing. I do a finished pen and ink drawing, and then I stain it red, the whole thing, edge to edge, and I carve away the red,
All the red.
theoretically. But I'm making changes to the width of the lines as
Sure.
I go sometimes. Sometimes I carve it like I drew it. That's what I do. And all those dudes,
It really
they
helps.
used an orange-based oil red of some sort to stain the block with. They had to, because otherwise
You can't see
you
it.
can't see it as you carve it. Dick Field gave me digital files of blocks that he had taken high-res photos of all over the world. It's all of his research. And there's one unfinished Dürer.
It still has the drawing on it, right?
It's in Germany someplace. It's
Germany.
an unfinished Dürer block. And it's stained orange so that they can see. And what's funny is I knew exactly what he was doing and how he was doing it right away when he showed that to me, because he asked me. He goes, what was he doing? Because Dick had never done a woodcut before until he came to Woodcut Boot Camp, which is a whole other story. But he showed this to me, and it was like, what's going on here? I go, oh my God, he's cutting a ridge. There's a way to do it.
And there's a way not to do it.
And there's a way not to do it. The same thing that I experienced when they showed me that block at the
Tasty,
Met.
tasty,
I was
tasty.
just like, oh my God. He was visiting me.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
That's what
oh,
it
yeah,
felt
yeah.
like when they pulled that out. It was like, this is a visitation.
Another deep breath. So they started wandering off and digging around in drawers and looking at prints and blocks and stuff, and I had to corral them back in. We're almost done, I promise. Everyone, sit down. We're gonna say goodbye so I can turn it off.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do you want us to say? Are we supposed to say something
Goodbye,
nice?
everyone.
No, I'm gonna...
This has
Oh my
been
God.
delightful.
This really has been delightful.
Can we do it again?
Absolutely anytime.
Anne's telling us to shut up so that she can do the closing.
I know, we've been terrible.
Not completely. We could have been worse.
Yes, we could have.
Oh my God, you do.
It's
Jesus.
the first time we've ever
Matt.
hung out.
Yeah, True and Tom have met for the first time IRL today. They've been fanboying each other for a long
it's a-
time. Yeah, but it's been a pleasure talking to you in your own studio, Tom, and I thank you so much for letting us
Hosting
come.
us.
Thanks, it's awesome. It's awesome having you here.
Thanks.
And the Subway sandwiches were delicious out here in
Surely there's a
Ozarkville.
Subway, Tom. We're in the country on a Monday. They're visiting. They're hungry. Everything's closed on Monday out here. And I was desperate and worried because they're my guests. And Anne's like, surely, Tom, there has to be a Subway. Yes, there is.
In this town of 1800,
Not even that.
Well, and they
Oh,
were
sorry.
overrun. The poor women behind
Oh,
the
yeah,
counter
they were
like,
swarmed.
"Ah,
They
it's
were.
not-"
Everybody was there because everything's fucking closed.
Yes.
They were overwhelmed.
Thankfully, we all got our sandwiches.
So we got our
We're all
sandwiches and
good.
got out alive.
Surely
And survived and we're not starving.
they
Right.
were okay.
All right.
They were okay. Thanks. It's
This-
been awesome.
Thank you.
I hope we get to do this again.
I think we will.
we probably
I
will.
think this is going to happen again. Whether it's recorded or not, I don't care.
But we could always do it when you get to
I'm
Baltimore.
jealous. I'm jealous of your little print geek circle that you have.
I liked it when you said print mafia.
You
I
can
like
be
that.
in
There's
the
a
print
mafia
circle.
aspect
You can be
too.
in it.
I don't know. I'm worried that I'll get kicked out.
Oh, please. We're just going to give you a couple jobs to do for us.
Okay. Take
A
it
little
out.
slip of the tool and up there.
Like, keep the cannolis.
That's right. Leave the gun.
Leave the gun. Keep the cannoli.
Take the cannoli. Leave the tool.
All right, we're signing off.
All right.
people.
Bye.
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 It's
Yeah.
been splendid.
God.
That was fun though.
It can happen.
That was cool of me. It was cool.
See what I mean? We said goodbye and they were still talking as we walked away from the mic. It's not so. Thanks for listening, everybody, to this episode of Platemark with Tom Hück and True Ludwig as our special co-host. Thank you to Michael Diamond for the use of his original music, and a reminder that any images we talk about will be on the show notes over at platemarkpodcast.com. You can hit the support and donate button and support the good work of we folk over here at Platemark. We'd really appreciate it. All right, we will see you next time.